While the second wave was expected to come, it wasn't an isolated phenomenon that India is seeing. We've seen it in our foreign counterparts as well. But the biggest challenge that India has seen in terms of the second wave has been how it has infected more people and how the mortality rate has also gone up. And now the biggest challenge that India is facing is its crumbling medical infrastructure. No ICU beds, no ventilators, not even oxygen. Patients are made to run pillar to post, and many of them are now losing their lives. So what is the estimate and what should India's strategy be going forward? I have with me Dr. Feigl-Ding, who is an epidemiologist. Of course, we've spoken to him numerous times. We want to understand what should India's strategy be, what should our learnings be from the cases that we've seen abroad. And we also want to talk about the changing pattern of the virus. Dr. Feigl-Ding, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for taking our time and doing this for us. I want to get straight to it. As I said, the second wave wasn't an isolated case. But with the kind of infections that we're seeing and the mortality rate, what is your estimate? In about a month, what is the kind of data that you're seeing for India?
Thanks for having me. India is definitely in a bigger crisis right now. It's short on very much ICU beds and oxygen and vaccines. And where India goes depends on how much mitigation do we do meantime until more of the population gets vaccines? Because only 1.6% of the Indian population is fully vaccinated. There's obviously more people with first shot, but it's still in the very low single digits. So in many ways, until India vaccinates more or has really strict restrictions, unfortunately, India's epidemic will continue to grow until it burns itself out. And by burning itself out, it means infecting a huge number of people until it fizzles out. And that is not the outcome we want to go. In an optimistic model, hopefully the mortality will start dropping by mid-May. But there's many models that say that India is on track for 1 million deaths conservatively by August of 2021. And this is conservatively because there's obviously a lot of undercounts and underdiagnosis from the lack of testing. And so India is lacking oxygen, ICU beds, ventilators, vaccines, as well as enough testing. And without enough testing, the death toll, we just simply don't know enough about the exact death toll. But based on what we've seen of comparing crematorium versus the official reported deaths, we are underestimating by at least 5x, but likely 10x or 20x.
Okay. Dr. Ding, the other big challenge has been how, the virus is, of course, changing its pattern as well with various mutations that are taking place. And the pattern of the virus is also now changing. In the first wave, if our entire focus was on surfaces like our doorknobs, our cupboard handles, we wanted to sanitize them. Now the biggest concern has become around COVID being airborne. I want to understand how should our protocols change from the first wave to now?
Yeah, in many ways, the virus has always been airborne. It's just been misunderstood. Look, it does transmit occasionally from the fomite, which is surface transmission like a doorknob. But for the majority, it is an airborne virus. And airborne means that keeping 6 feet, while important, is not enough. If you're indoors with someone unmasked for a long time, even if they are masked, because masks tend to leak, what happens is the virus particles will build up in a room. And even if you're 6 feet away, you're not fully protected. And even if you're in a room without anyone else, but they were recently in that room, such as a bathroom, they left, you enter immediately afterwards, you don't see anybody else, but the truth is the virus can still be in the air, especially when you flush the toilet as well. The virus is something, the only way to deal with an airborne virus is to ventilate, open windows. And of course, for those with means, you could buy a portable HEPA filter, but that's obviously not something that is widely available to a lot of people. But opening the windows, and 2 windows at least, and having a draft will clear out a lot of the aerosols. But indoors is really dangerous. This is why indoor dining is very dangerous. Because when you're indoors and you take off your mask to eat and to talk, that is when you're at the greatest risk. And this applies to restaurants as well as school cafeterias. as well as any cafeteria or cantina. The key thing is to hold activities outside and distance. So that also means even if you're outside, no big political rallies, because that is incredibly, incredibly dangerous with throngs and thousands of people.
Right. Dr. D, then it becomes a catch-22 of sorts, because, you know, we keep telling people that stay indoors if you really can, only step out if it's for essential services. Then for the time that we are stepping outside, is it relatively safer? And for people who are stepping out, what is the protocol? You said even 6 feet might not be an ideal situation.
Well, 6 feet is better than no distancing, where 6 feet is better than a crowded situation where you're shoulder to shoulder. Outdoors is safer, yes, but at the same time, outdoor activities, depending on what you do, it could be risky. If you go to a crowded marketplace, that could be more risky. Indoors, yes, by yourself or just with your family, but indoor gatherings, such as, I'll be honest, churches and temples and places of worship, those are very risky. Don't do indoors with other people outside of your house. That is the key. And if you are inside your house with other people who are coming in and out of your home, open all windows and make sure there's a constant breeze. Use a fan if you have to make sure you increase the speed of the airflow. This is what you need to do. Indoors is risky with anyone other than your closest family.
Okay. Dr. Ding, I also want to talk about these new strains that have now been found as far as the virus being airborne. The Sri Lanka variant being the most latest one, which is now experts are saying that it could stay in the air for as long as 60 minutes. Do we have enough data to understand what are the kind of patterns that we see? And not just the Sri Lankan variant, even the France variant, which, you know, not so many people talk about. What are the kind of patterns that we're seeing with these variants?
Well, in terms of variants, I don't think they are more contagious, yes, but whether they survive in the air longer, I'm not sure that's necessarily true. Look, the virus can survive in the air for 20 minutes to 4 hours. Without any air ventilation, it can just stay and float in the air for 4 hours. And that is the trickiest part. The variants, though, the property that makes them dangerous is some are more infectious. They infect you faster with a smaller dose. You can get infected. They also spread faster and create a higher viral load. They make infection sometimes longer, like the UK variant. The infectious period is longer. And also the UK variant, B117, also infects children more. And of course, some variants, and we're not sure about India yet, but there also could be more severe. And that is possible for the India variants that we've seen, B1617 as well as B1618. Look, I think there are many, many things we have to learn about the variants. It's just that of a virus with enough warm bodies, hosts, will learn to mutate, learn to infect faster, learn to be a stronger, better, faster virus. So the key to stopping the variants is to vaccinate and also mitigate, because the less warm bodies, the less chance of more variants. And a virus that can't replicate cannot mutate. So these are some basic lessons. But what works in general for older strains will work for the variants. The key is you just have to do them more aggressively, because as a more contagious virus, a more aggressive action is needed and urgently needed.
Okay, Dr. Ding, lastly, what I want to understand is our next big focus is vaccination. The biggest inoculation phase starts from the 1st of May, where anybody above the age of 18 is eligible to get a vaccine shot. The concern that is now many are raising is, does the vaccine work against these many mutations and many variants that we see? Because you've been studying, patterns from across the world, what is the best understanding do you have against this?
For the most part, for the most vaccines, and the most variants, the vaccine definitely works and works really, really well. There are exceptions. For example, the South Africa variant is currently the most vaccine and reinfection prone variant, but that's not the one that's most common in India. There's also the P1, which is the Brazil variant. There is some moderate reinfection with P1, not as bad as in South Africa. Now, for the other ones, we don't know for sure. We know that two doses is really key and really protects you, because with one dose, we know that there's inadequate protection. It's a partial immunity protection. You need 2 doses to have the highest neutralization titers. So I think the key thing is, even if you're 1 dose vaccinated, do not assume you're fully protected. And even if you're 2 dose protected, you could still get mild infections, mild to asymptomatic infections. And asymptomatic is key, because even though they're healthy people, relatively healthy, they can still spread it to others, which continues the transmission chain. So I think people still need a mask, even if vaccinated. Variants, for the most part, right now, it's not out of control. The vaccines work against them. But if we give the variants more time to replicate, more time to find ways to evade us, we might hit a situation where the vaccines may not work. So this is why vaccinate is critical, mitigate in the meantime, and fight this so that we don't have to fight this time and time again with a 3rd wave, 4th wave.
Absolutely. I think that is the crux, that you need to go ahead, take that vaccine jab. More and more people need to come forward, and we need to get rid of this vaccine hesitancy. Dr. Ding, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for taking our time and doing this for us.
Stay safe.
You too. Thank you so much.